thing I keep saying and witnessing is that United keep losing, but not losing to teams that play particularly well. This is the thing that has grabbed me.
The same old domestic frailties continue to rear their heads, while Ruben Amorim's undefeated European United have eyes firmly set on a semi-final trip to Spain. We're discussing form, tactics and aspirations, alongside Rasmus Hojlund and the prospects of Delap and Matheus Cunha, and much more on your Theatre of Red. So, Manchester United are heading into one of their most important weeks in recent memory, with a trip to the always dangerous Athletic Bilbao firmly in their sights. The magnitude of this Europa League fixture cannot be overstated, with the prospect of a season without European football and the financial implications that offers becoming a very real possibility. Domestically, things continue to go from bad to worse, with a 14th place standing emphasising the nature of the issues within the squad, having now endured 4 consecutive Premier League games without victory and only scoring a solitary goal in that time. Inevitably, as we approach May, the transfer speculation machine is now in full flow as we anticipate an exodus of players ahead of what will be the most important summer window in recent memory. I'm very pleased to spend some time unwrapping all today with a man who's been there, done it, and has several t-shirts in his locker. Mr. Sam Pilger. The highs of the most memorable of European outings against Lyon were swatted aside for a second league defeat in a week against Wolves, with Ruben Amorim's men sitting 2 points above 17th place in the Premier League. Now, for me, it's understandable, given the nature of the project and the philosophy that he is attempting to build, having arrived mid-season. But for others, what we're seeing is beyond unacceptable, with a growing contingent beginning to cry for his axing, and I find that bizarre. We've previously chatted on this podcast when Erik ten Hag was in charge, and you were rather vocal about his deficiencies and the atrocious standing of the team under his guidance. Given how far that we have fallen since his departure, how are you feeling about Amorim, his ideals, and where the team is today?
We are in a very strange position because the stats are appalling. I mean, it's 6 wins in 22 Premier League games, and those 6 wins, half of them against the worst 3 teams that are relegated already, the 3 worst teams in I think the worst bottom 3 in Premier League history. The other win was against Everton under Shaun, City when United were losing with 3 minutes to go in their bad run, and Fulham with a late winner from Martinez. That's frightening. I sort of felt that if Amorim had been, I remember Fulham had a season where they had 3 managers. One was Felix Magath, René Meulenstein, and they had about 3 managers, and they kept sacking managers desperately, trying to survive. I sort of feel that 6 wins out of 22, if Amorim would have been sacked if he was at Fulham during that season, because obviously United are not getting relegated, but it's such a dreadful run that it's hard to actually get your head around how bad it is. That said, I don't advocate for his sacking at all. I'm desperate for it to succeed. I really like him. I warmed to him in a way I didn't with Ten Hag. I think he's got tremendous charisma. I think he gets it. But there is this huge disconnect between the man and his style and his charisma and his press conferences and his talk and the results, which are just horrid. And, the thing I keep saying and witnessing is that United keep losing, but not losing to teams that play particularly well. This is the thing that has grabbed me. If you look this year against Crystal Palace, Brighton, Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, Wolves, United just keep losing, and not against teams that have played well against them. It's all very well to get ripped apart by a really good team, and that happens. And you think, well, they're on the up. Newcastle, another defeat. God, there's so many defeats you forget. So, I remember being at Tottenham in February, and Tottenham dreadful, even worse than United this season. won 1-0. Third time they've beaten United. They didn't play well at all. Wolves that we've just seen. United were the better team at Old Trafford. United played quite well, looked promising, were the better team. Was it lost? So for, all the talk of debuts and kids, losing's not good in any way. And I think the stats are, against Wolves, Vitor Pereira was appointed a month after Amorim, has won 29 points to Amorim 17, and that was his 5th Premier League win in a row, whereas United, over the course of the season, haven't won consecutive Premier League games. It is, as I said, in short, I like the man, and I think, to balance it, the draw at Anfield, the win on penalties at the Emirates, the spirit to win against City, the Lyon win, getting past Real Sociedad, there are positives. But to be blunt, you'd say the negatives outweigh them. But in no way is that advocating for him to be sacked. That would be ridiculous. So it's a very, very strange time as we prepare for a European semi-final. That's hugely exciting, as it was 10 days ago for a European quarterfinal. However much amongst the darkness, these are something to cherish and enjoy, because you don't know when you'll see them again.
And you've drawn on several things, particularly when you're referencing Liverpool and Arsenal, and obviously what we saw against Lyon. If you were to take a step back and focus on nothing more than results, they're sackable. There's no two ways about that.
Yeah.
However, when you sit down and you digest each fixture and you look at the performances, I'm not saying everything is perfect, because absolutely it is not. But there is sustainable growth, I believe, week on week in what you're seeing with the players on the field. It almost appears as if there is more of an understanding, and that whatever is going on in the training field, that these players are being perceptive of it. Another thing that really stands out to me, Sam, is they don't appear to have downed tools. Everybody seems behind what's going on at the moment. When you take it as an overall perspective, results not good enough. League standing, obviously not good enough. We're very fortuitous in what you have mentioned, that these teams that are going down have been as bad as they are, because in seasons gone by, things could have been entirely different given the way things are going at this moment in time.
I think you're right. I think hugely fortuitous. United are currently on 38 points. Obviously, the sort of the cliche, and it's changed, was 40 points for survival. Remember, West Ham got relegated with 44 points in the early 2000s with Glenn Roeder and a good side with Joe Cole and other good players. Too good to go down. They had 44 points and got relegated. United have 38 points. I think there's a chance United are not going to reach 44. Might not even reach the fabled 40. United are hugely fortuitous that these three teams have been so bad. Otherwise, United would have been in a relegation battle, and that would have been a real test of character. We've reached a strange period where the league doesn't matter and hasn't mattered, can't do anything. We'll finish between 17th and 13th. It's kind of meaningless. Well, it's not, but because every game is a chance to see players, their character, momentum, debuts. Of course, as a United fan, no game is meaningless. Everything has some interest in it. But in another season, United could have been sucked into a relegation battle. I remember, I think it was when United went 2-0 down to Everton, and that was February. Obviously came back to draw 2-2. I was gripped by this panic I haven't been since the late 80s, since the sort of 89-90 season of I think we're really in a relegation battle. I really think, we just keep conceding and losing. Now we got back to 2-2, and since then, because the teams below us have been so bad and not put up a fight, I think it was a game against Ipswich, was almost a relegation 6-pointer that United won. And then since then, the teams have been dead and buried, long gone. So it hasn't mattered. United haven't been looking over their shoulders, but there were a few nervous moments, which is incredible. And I think you're right. When you say Ruben Amorim's results have been sackable, 6 wins and none of them that impressive in 22 Premier League games. That is a sackable run because it is so bad. But the other results, the overall picture, United are, You look at what happened with Dan Ashworth when United hierarchy said, no, this is not working, the chemistry is not there. He went 4 months. So the same could happen with Amorim. I don't think it will. I think they like him and they've seen enough. And also, it would be kind of mad not to give him his own players a summer and believe in him. And I think they do, and I think that will happen. But he's, as I say, he's lucky with the teams below him, but he's lucky he has that belief too, because it has been really, really poor. And I mean, 15 defeats is something incredible.
Yeah, well, it's only one behind Fergie from 89-90. He hit 16 that year, and I believe with the 1-0 defeat to Wolves the last day, it's only one behind that tragic season under Sir Matt Busby with 8 or 9 Old Trafford defeats domestically. I know as supporters of the Premier League, Sam, we often get drawn into these irrelevant conversations about its quality compared to the other European leagues and just how much more difficult it is in England. Naturally, I understand that United are competing in a secondary cup competition, but the contrast between the Europa League fortunes and this dismal inability to perform domestically could not be any larger. Fundamentally, it highlights the gap in physicality between the two competitions, and that would appear to aid, obviously, in the confidence of this squad. That said, there have been games, ample games domestically, really, such as Wolves last weekend, where the same old final third misfortunes seem to resurface, and it seems so bizarre considering that they scored 5 in the same stadium only 3 days before that. Now, as you know, Sam, with Manchester United comes expectations. Failure generally results in a necessity to scapegoat either a player or a group of players or a manager or a coach. We see somebody like Rasmus Hojlund, who is now completely devoid of confidence, being painted as the poster boy for our final third decline. And now we have growing speculation about the pursuit of another youngster in Liam Delap. Ironically, in this entire situation, Hojlund is only 4 days older than the Ipswich man. And as we know, 12 goals and 2 assists in the top flight, especially for a young guy in a relegation-bound team, is an incredibly impressive return. However, Hojlund managed 10-2 with fewer games played and also hit 5 from 6 in the Champions League in his debut season. I think fundamentally, alongside weeks of poor decision-making from him and his attacking colleagues, the biggest flaw that I have seen is an inability to provide the Dane with a veteran goalscorer to shadow and to learn from. Now, don't get me wrong with all of this. I like Liam Delap. I think he's a phenomenal talent, a very good player. But when we consider that Victor Osimhen will not be pursued, is this club, and namely Jason Wilcox, repeating old errors in targeting a very young hitman to lead their line when we already have seen the crippling damage that it can cause to another very talented youngster in Rasmus Hojlund?
I mean, I share your concerns. It's a strange cycle whereby, I mean, you talk about Hojlund, but obviously Zirkzee, which was a strange signing, but again, unproven, young, and we've had the same results. Although he's sort of endeared himself, he has had some good moments. Unfortunately, got injured at just the wrong time. So that will be 2 summers where United have bought Hojlund and then Zirkzee, and these are young, unproven strikers who have struggled. The risk, with Delap is that the same thing happens. I mean, the only caveat to that is that Hojlund and Zirkzee both came from Italy and had never played in the Premier League. Delap has done it in the Premier League, so that is the slight difference. He has done it. He's, I wouldn't say Premier League proven because he's only played it for a season, but he scored goals in the Premier League, whereas Zirkzee and Hojlund turned up with no goals in the Premier League between them. I think, there is something of the big, bustling, very quite English striker about Delap. Could United miss the boat? Could he be, this generation's Alan Shearer in 2 or 3 seasons' time? Possibly. I do think, if it's correct, a £30 million release clause is too good not to. I mean, without the release clause. I mean, his agent and him have done an incredible job if that's what they negotiated, because in the open market, a young English striker who scored 12 Premier League goals in a relegated team would be worth 60, 70, 80 million. So 30 million, I believe Newcastle are interested too. There's good reporting on that just today. It's a test of United's allure, that would Newcastle, who've just won a trophy, possibly in the Champions League, or Manchester United, where would you go? Now, I'm biased. There is nowhere like Manchester United playing in front of 75,000. And that if United get it right, they get it spectacularly right. Newcastle, Newcastle is still a stepping stone. You haven't arrived at Newcastle, even now, as well as they're doing. It is another stepping stone. So I would hope United still have that lure, but you don't know. It'd be interesting what he decides. Obviously, he's lived in Manchester before. We're coming through Manchester City, so that might, and the relationship with Jason Wilcox, have a role. But so I think United have to go for Delap, simply because of the transfer fee. £30 million. It would be incredible business, but I think they have to buy another striker as well. And I think, sadly, I want Hojlund to do so well, but I just feel like he and I still think he's got it. And I think he'll flourish somewhere else. But I mean, if you could sell Hojlund for 30 million and buy Delap for 30 million, and by another striker, that would be an incredible season, because Xerxes is not a number 9, so he'll play somewhere else. I mean, you look back, and we might discuss this before, but the summer of 2023, the plan was to buy Harry Kane and to buy Hojlund as the apprentice, the master and the apprentice. Now that's a sliding door moment, because Kane's just scores goals. He scored a goal a game in the Bundesliga. Absolutely incredible. Of course, all the goals he scored in the Premier League. United would be, I think you drop Harry Kane into the side, United would be a top 4 side. They'd be about 3rd, 4th, 5th. That was a sliding door moment. The decision to go to Hojlund for 72 million was disastrous, really. They repeated it by not buying a proven striker in the last summer, Joshua Xerxes. I think the hope was that Hojlund, he had scored 15, 16 goals. He had shown potential. It was like, okay, he's bedded in. This is a big second season, and it's been a disaster. So to buy Delap, and only Delap, as a number 9 as a source of goals would be a risk. It would be a gamble. I think, obviously, Matheus Cunha, a proven Premier League player, again, behind him, more experienced, 25, about to turn 26, a lot of goals. That's almost if they both come in, that's a huge injection of goals, or potential for goals. So maybe the thought is Delap just on his own. No, that's not going to cut it. But Cunha and Delap, there's hope there for something. But, we're, as fans, we're greedy, and we think, is that enough? Is that enough? And could we be shocked in a year's time if we go, oh, Delap, he's got 6 goals, he's got potential. He's still only 22, 23. We wouldn't be shocked at that. We wouldn't be shocked at that, because it's the fear of the unknown. But it is a risk. But as I say, and I think it's a risk worth taking at 30 million, but not on its own. I think United still need more.
All very fair. And when you're mentioning Cunha, he can play a critical role in the transformation of the forward line, and also, as you said, in the guidance of younger players like Delap, and if Hojlund was to stay around. Now, as we know, Cunha is the subject of intense interest from United. Old Trafford officials are keen to solidify a deal, and he is soon to be 26, if I'm not mistaken. I've highlighted the potential that he offers, given his versatility to play anywhere across that attacking line, including as a number 9. And the added benefit of multiple years in the Premier League offers the type of signing, while expensive, can be highly beneficial for any top side trying to play flamboyant transitional football. Now, he's had years of experience as a 9 or a second striker. And for those familiar with Amorim's sporting model, he's tailor-made to facilitate the role of a Paulinho, while someone like Ahmad could easily fill the Trincao dynamic that fills that front 3, that little triumvirate of attackers. In an age when the majority of formations and positioning are utilised to really benefit pre-match analysis or computer games on large screens, Cunha is very much an attacker who I believe could immediately contribute goals and experience in this front line. And that's the difference when I look at someone like Delap. Delap at 30 million, a perfect synopsis. You can't leave him there for 30 million, given what he could potentially become and what he has on the table now. But like Hojlund, there is absolutely no guarantee of him coming to Old Trafford and being able to shoulder the burden of expectation that comes with that shirt. And like you said, we could be speaking in 12 months' time about another player like Hojlund who just failed to live up to the potential and that weight of expectation in Manchester. However, having somebody like Cunha there has the ability to alleviate a lot of the burden with the goal scoring that Rasmus Hojlund simply does not have at this moment in time. Although you look at Cunha and he's not going to come cheap, how do you feel about the prospect of that transfer, Sam? Is that something that excites you, given that it will probably be the definition of our marquee acquisition in the summer if it comes to fruition?
I think it's hugely exciting. I really do. And I think it's a bit of a coup, really, for United, who could, could finish 17th, could not have European football. We hope that's not the case, but to get a player like him would be incredible. And I feel like, as you've suggested, all the music, I think a reliable top tier Brazilian journalist today said it's done. Talking on Thursday the 24th, and that seems to be the briefing and the sense. You could see with Amorim and Casemiro, obviously both Portuguese speakers, walking off and speaking to him. I think they knew something we didn't at that time too. His agent, his family were all there too at the game, Cunha's. So I feel I feel very, very positive about that. Everything I've heard too doesn't contradict that. I think, again, we talk about, a relegation threatened team in Wolves. What he has produced this season is incredible. So for him to come to United, I think it's hugely exciting, and I think he will immediately improve United. You obviously played at Wolves. He's playing in the same system Amorim wants him to. It's not far from an ideal signing. 25 to be about to be 26. I'm really excited by that. And someone who's done it on the biggest stage, scored a lot of goals in the Premier League for someone who's not an out number 9. For a team hasn't been firing, I think it bodes really well. And I think if that's the best, there's other areas we can talk about, and goalkeeper and midfield and so forth, but players who can play Amorim's system and a Premier League proven, I can't see. I don't think you can do better than Cunha. So yeah, very excited.
There's a handful, I think. Alongside Cunha, you could have someone like Brian Mbeumo over in Brentford. He's another exciting talent, but Cunha is almost tailor-made for it. And in terms of attackers, you also have to look at the other side of it and those that are on the cusp of leaving, because we've seen ample information throughout Wednesday and this morning regarding Marcus Rashford and the suggestion of his desire to play Champions League football next season. He's contributed 4 goals and 6 assists from 17 Aston Villa appearances. For me, that's largely a continuation of what we saw during the opening half of the season in Manchester, but it would appear as though a complete breakdown in relations is beyond repair with Amorim. Just out of curiosity's sake, what have you made of his time in Birmingham and the reports of his continued desires to potentially play in Barcelona or Paris Saint-Germain?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think it hasn't been an overwhelming success by any means, has it? If I'm to be picky, I think he scored 1 goal from open play in the Premier League at Brighton. He scored a penalty against City and 2 against Preston in the FA Cup. So he scored 1 goal from open play in the Premier League. So it's not. He also hasn't. He's gone into a better team clearly in Villa. He has not been played all the time. He's had to get used to the substitute bench. He's been rotated. Obviously, Ollie Watkins. They've got some good talent there. Yeah, I mean, I think. Interestingly, I saw a TikTok with Aston Villa fans outside Villa Park, and they said, they're 2 loanees, Asensio and Rashford. Who would you want to stay? And almost by 10-1, they said Asensio over Rashford. So I thought that was interesting. I thought, oh wow, we sort of not look down, but obviously think, oh, you're sort of taking a step down to play at Aston Villa, but they're not that enamored that they're desperate to keep Rashford. So I thought that was it. I mean, obviously it's just a random selection of fans outside Villa Park, but it was quite overwhelming. So I think, but maybe I'm being a bit mealy-mouthed. I think he has done well. I think obviously just in that moment where he nutmegged the PSG defender and then beat another one, beat two, and then cut it back for the goal against PSG at Villa Park. That was the Rashford we remember. I mean, I think the briefing, as you said, there was talk of Rashford possibly hasn't ruled out staying. Again, I sort of smiled because I thought, well, that's not entirely your decision. Yes, you can't be sold if you've got a contract, but it's not that. I think the relationship with Amorim has broken down. I also think, if we're being realistic, where does Rashford play in this system? I think that's he's not a number 9. He hasn't his great success. His 30-goal season wasn't at number 9. Very few games there. Whenever he's been at number 9, he's felt there's been something missing. He's better running at players, cutting in. So he's not going to play at number 9. He's certainly not a number 10 in. I mean, a very talented footballer that could obviously do well at any team, but I don't see him being in Amorim's system. I mean, there's talk about Garnacho and Mainu as well. You think, where do they work in Amorim's system? But in terms of Rashford, so the fact that he's done pretty well, will hopefully get him another move. But yeah, I mean, I did think, I mean, it was quite funny. It's like, I don't want to go to London. It has to be a Champions League. You're really narrowing your teams. And actually, if you look at in January, I think at the start of January, he wouldn't have chosen to go to Aston Villa. So you don't always, I think his dream move is Barcelona, and, fair enough. I think the kid in all of us dream move would be Barcelona or Real Madrid, but that I think his wages are obviously a problem. I don't think anyone's going to pay him £350,000 a week. United did, and I shouldn't regret that, because he came off a 30-goal season and we thought we had a homegrown world-class player at his peak years. Well, he fell off a cliff after that season, and the wages look a bit silly now. I don't know if anyone's going to pay them. It might have to pay him off. Yeah, he's done well at Villa Park. I don't think has been an overwhelming success, but he's done well. He will be pleased for that, and obviously he's got an FA Cup semi-final this weekend. Playing in the Champions League, obviously, is something he wouldn't have done at United. But I don't know. He probably mentally has moved on. I did think, did he look at Thursday night against Lyon and those incredible scenes and think, oh, that's home. I wish I was there. But maybe mentally he's moved on.
It's an awful situation, though, isn't it? Not just with him, but that, not to trudge back on what we've spoken about, but we're discussing Hojlund and we're discussing Delap and the lack of goals that we have. And then you look at players that are still on the books with Rashford, Jadon Sancho, Anthony, all and they're all enjoying themselves elsewhere. But the one thing that we will say about Rashford, from what we know and from individuals that I've spoken with in Spain, Hansi Flick is a huge admirer. And I believe it was October of last year at a sporting meeting that was going on with Flick and Deco and other representatives. I know that Flick specifically requested to have Rashford added to a name of potential targets. Now, how that works out financially, how it works out even in the structure of their attacking team, because like you look at what they have with Rafinha, all the abundance of attacking talent that they have, it's hard to see it. But again, you saw Cunha walking off the field with Casemiro and Amorim, as you said. There's clearly something they know that we don't. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But disregarding everything off the field, just for a couple of moments, obviously we face into a difficult trip to Bournemouth on Sunday before a Thursday trip to the Basque region for that hugely important semi-final Europa League outing. Now, although the wheels have somewhat come off the Cherries' miraculous charge, I think they have a solitary win from 8 Premier League fixtures. This will be anything but a straightforward game, and they will be looking to complete a domestic double following a 3-0 Old Trafford victory. Amorim has obviously referenced the importance of leading youngsters in league outings, and we saw that with Harry Amas and Tyler Fredrickson against Wolves. And then when you look at players like Chido Obi, Jadon Camison, Jack Moorhouse, and many more knocking on the door of regular first-team opportunities, how do you see the Reds approaching this fixture? And are we going to see significant rotations once more?
Yeah, I think so. I think our injury run has just been appalling. I mean, I know everyone has to deal with injuries, but the last 2 years it really has been. We're praising Aiden to the heavens. Sorry, that's but he was incredible on his Premier League debut, and then he gets injured. Martinez is banging in goals at Anfield. The winner at Fulham gets injured. Zirkzee is enjoying some good form, is literally on a good run, pulls up with a hamstring. I think Amorim will be scarred by these injuries. Obviously, he hasn't had use of Mount and Shaw for most of the season. So I think he will be careful because, the game is 4 days later. They've got to travel. But I feel playing Fredrickson and Amas was a huge success. I think both of them looked good. I think Amas obviously came on against Leon and didn't look out of place, kept it neat and tidy. Obviously on that left side and played a role in one of the goals, sort of knocking it back. So I think this is an opportunity to look at young players. Unfortunately, these are dead rubbers. I think he will rotate again. I think he will look to use some more young players because we just can't afford any more injuries ahead of Bilbao. But then again, you need momentum. There's no playing a weakened side and losing 3-0. That will deflate everything. I mean, different but similar. You look at Crystal Palace last night. They got a FA Cup semi-final on Saturday. I was very surprised at what a strong side they put out. I really thought they would just dismiss that game, and yet they got a very credible. They played a strong side. They got a credible draw, very good draw against Arsenal. And so they go into their FA Cup semi-final with momentum and confidence, So it's that balance, isn't it? You can't dismiss a game. Look, it's meaningless. Bournemouth win or lose, it doesn't matter. You need to have some momentum, but at the same time, you need to protect Bruno Fernandes or the really important players. So yeah, I think there'll be. I think there'll be a balance, but whatever happens against Bournemouth, our season will be defined. Well, the league season has been a disaster, whatever happens there, but overall it'll be defined. There is something in me that does think last year was dreadful, but it ended on a high with the FA Cup win. Is this going to be top that United finished 8th and won the FA Cup, and now United are going to finish 17th and win the Europa League and get a place back in the Champions League? I don't know. There's a lot of hurdles. Obviously, Athletic Bilbao is the toughest semi-final, and then maybe Tottenham waiting in the final if United get through. So it's going to be very, very hard, as it should be. It's the final four of the Europa League. But obviously that will and should be the focus from now.
There's been something in me all season that, regardless of everything that's gone on domestically, there's just been a little feeling in the back about Europe, that they are capable of doing something special. As you said, carrying on from Wembley. I mean, look, they're still unbeaten in Europe.
Yeah.
And people forget that despite everything that's gone on domestically, they're still unbeaten in Europe, scoring lots of goals. Even going to France and getting a draw, they were the better side and they should have won that game. Yeah. I know Athletic Bilbao is going to be a tricky game. It always is. They're a good, solid Basque side, that real strength within them. But Manchester United should be able to turn them over if they turn up and all their key players turn up. And we have discussed much about the ideals of this Ineos revolution. But considering everything that has been and gone with Ten Hag and the nature of this side's capitulation since, I am curious, do you believe that at this moment in time, Amorim is the correct man for Sir Jim Ratcliffe's arrival? And would Europa League success banish everything that has occurred domestically there before?
I don't think it could banish it. It's been so dreadful. You can't look past that. Again, if you look back at, we banished it with Ten Hag and made the mistake of keeping Ten Hag, and that's obviously reverberated through this season. So I think Europa League with the gateway into the Champions League. I mean, to qualify for the Champions League and finish 15th would be incredible, laughable, really strange, but would be it amongst the rules. And so yeah, a European trophy. You see the banner put up at Old Trafford with the one Europa League, the Cup Winners' Cup, and the 3 Champions League. The fact that United could add to that banner with another European trophy, the 6th in the history, get into the Champions League in a season in which it finished 15th in the league, which has been the worst season in my lifetime, and since United's 89-90 season finished 13th, so it'd be comfortably probably the lowest league finish since the relegation season, 73-74, probably. Yeah, I mean, it's just been absolutely disastrous. So it couldn't banish that, but it would just be a strange quirk. And is Amorim? I don't know. I hope so. I feel there's a lot I like about him, as we discussed at the start. But there's a lot of football talk about data in football, and 6 wins in 22 Premier League games is pretty compelling data that there's something not quite right. But give him a pre-season, give him a transfer window, and then judge him. We judged Ten Hag after 2 seasons, and one was 2.5 seasons, but. He certainly had his own players there. There were no excuses. It'd be strange to get rid of Amorim without allowing him to bring in players and really execute his vision. And I think, I don't know. There's some. I like Dorgu. I think Dorgu. 25 million Lecce. It's the sort of signing Brighton would make, and then it'd be worth 50, 60 million in 2 or 3 years' time. I use him as a if this is an example of the only example we have of an Amorim signing, I like it. I think he's athletic, good with his feet, stamina, physical. I think he'd have some more assists and goals, or certainly assists if United had some decent strikers. He's cut the ball back well. I like what I see there. Only after, obviously he served a 3-match ban already. He hasn't played that much, but I like what I've seen. I know people are like, I'm not sure. Similar with Ugarte, there seems to be a debate but anyway, sorry, I digress. Dorgu, I think, has shown what and Heaven in a way. I suppose you'd have to say Heaven was an Amorim signing, really, probably more through the club. But I think Dorgu he picked out, and I think he's looked good. So if he can add more players like that, but as we've discussed before, six wins in 22 is sackable. So if he survives, and he will, I'm pretty sure he will, then a pre-season, his own transfer window, his own players. Then we can properly judge a full season. It would be rash to do anything other than that. So I think that's what will happen.
I would agree with all, and particularly on Dorgu. He's matching in with that issue that we spoke about at the start of the podcast, because he's such an athlete. He's physically strong, and that's exactly what you need in this team. You need to look at athletes and then look at all the traits and the skills that they can bring to a system. And I think fundamentally that's what he's trying to achieve. You mentioned obviously about the Europa League and with Spurs, and the amusing fact that Manchester United could finish as low as they could and then make Champions League football. How ironic would it be if Manchester United and Spurs played out the Europa League final for a place in the Champions League, given how poor they have both been domestically?
They could have finished 16th and 17th and be playing for Champions League. Is that written in the stars? Yeah.
It's just, it's crazy, but that's football, isn't it? And Sam, as always, it's been a pleasure. What have you got going on in your world following your much needed break?
Just the normal stuff, following United and covering them for my stuff for Forbes, and just enjoying being a fan. Yeah, I should say we haven't talked about Leon, which was only less than a week ago, but strange again when you say football can be strange. Amongst this season, which has just been absolutely dire and terrible. I was at Old Trafford with my wife and family, 4 of us, last Thursday, and I think that has to be in the top 3 favourite moments as a United fan. Just there at the stadium, I think I derive more joy from that than I've seen when I've seen us win trophies over the years. So it's strange things that amongst this unrelenting dreadfulness of the season that pops up out of nowhere. Obviously, with 6 minutes to go, we were down and out and 3 goals and incredible scenes. So it shows you what football can do. So I'm enjoying the ride, and I hope it takes us to Bilbao. So let's wait and see.
Here, and it always gives us something to write about as well, Sam. As always, thank you very much for tuning in today. It is very much appreciated, one and all. And be sure to drop us a follow across every social platform at theatre_of_red, and visit the site for daily content coming straight from Carrington. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening, and if you'd be as kind, a 5-star review would be much appreciated if you can spare a couple of seconds. We will be back next week to chat with Mr. Ben Jacobs about the latest comings and goings in the world of Manchester United. Have a great weekend.